Welcome to the channel for the future caretakers of resurrected species. Welcome to the Paleo-Zoo-Keepers Association.
This video has been sponsored by David Glean, the author of Fern the Dinosaur Girl. Okay. Oh, hello there. Welcome to the Paleo-Zoo-Keeper Association. My name is Austin. When taking care of animals, there are many things to consider. Whether it's feeding, medication, habitat requirements, like for my little friend Leo here. But there's also another thing that helps improve the animal's quality of life: training and conditioning. Basically, it might seem probably wouldn't even consider it, but whether it's domesticated or wild animals in captivity, training and conditioning is very vital for the animal's welfare, and of course our welfare as well. And each species would present its own set of challenges for this. One of them would definitely be the Eolambia. Now, just like I said earlier, training it would be an essential part of the welfare of animals, as well as conditioning. The reason is that with proper training and proper conditioning, it can make the environment for the animals and people to be low stress. For in the case of humans, like the zookeepers and such, if you were able to condition the animals to be able getting trained to be more cooperative, it's a safer work environment. For the animals, there's even better reasons for training and conditioning for them. With proper training and conditioning, it'll be low stress for the animals. And low stress levels can be able to affect the animal's natural behavior, health, examination for medical purposes, and even breeding. As I mentioned, training and conditioning will be very important for the well-being of animals. Now, mind you, each species will represent different challenges when it comes to training and conditioning. It can range from their diets, certain behaviors, and so forth, while at the same time they would have similarities. One species in particular, especially at least for the focus of this video, that would definitely set an interesting challenge is a herbivorous dinosaur, not very well known compared to its other relatives, but still will be a good base for its more famous relatives. That is, like I mentioned earlier, the Eolambia. Eolambia, or the Donlambiasaur, is a hadrosaur dinosaur that is from the time period of between early to late Cretaceous in the United States of America. At a length of 17 to 20 feet and 6 feet and 7 inches tall on the shoulder and weighing over a ton in weight, it's definitely big by modern standards, but pretty small compared to its more popular and well-known relatives. It lived in a forest environment at the edge of lakes and a humid floodplain environment, primarily feasting upon gymnosperms, ferns, and angiosperms, or flowering plants. Despite being a hadrosauroid, this animal is actually more akin to iguanodonts than to true hadrosaurs. The skull similarities to hadrosaurs is just like from convergence. Now, it doesn't seem like much, especially since this is one of the lesser known species of hadrosauroids. But with what we know about modern day animals and what we know about its closest relatives in the fossil record, this could give us some ideas on what the animal is like. And understanding what the animal is like will be very essential for training and conditioning of the Eolambia. And also, mind you, some of the stuff I'll be covering here can also work for not just the Eolambia, but also for its other hadrosauroids, from the iguanodonts to actual hadrosaurs. As mentioned before, just like other hadrosauroids, the Eolambia is a herbivore, with with, if it's like its relatives, perhaps occasionally going for rotting wood and invertebrates to supplement its diet. But on average, it's a herbivore. This would definitely not only show like what you should feed them, but also like the foods and treats that one can use for training, rewards, stuff like that. Now, however, just because it's a herbivore and most likely won't see you as prey, doesn't mean that it's not dangerous. Pretty much like what the infamous hippopotamus of Africa has shown us, herbivores can be far more dangerous than carnivores are. In the case of Eolambia, they could be aggressive for reasons such as very protective females who are protective of their nests or their offspring, aggressive bulls who are full of hormones ready to attack, or even just out of fear of being attacked, they will attack first and ask questions later. So it's definitely not too far-fetched that the Eolambia might be a tad more aggressive than predators in this regards. Even if that may be so, it doesn't mean that the Eolambia's life in the wild was easy. And if it was aggressive, it would have a very good reason to be aggressive, for its habitat is pretty much been choked with predators such as crocodilians and meat-eating theropod dinosaurs. So it's got plenty of reasons to possibly not only be aggressive, but to be immensely skittish and fearful as well. This will basically mean that since they are prey animals, like deer, they will get spooked very easily, get pretty skittish. That sudden noises would surprise or scare them, and they often would hate new objects in their environment. It makes them very suspicious about anything that's new, displaced, or seems dangerous of any kind. With this kind of possible skittishness of the Eolambia as a prey animal, it has a lot of implications. With an animal that is often spooked or scared very easily, a lot of things can happen, like they can accidentally trample over each other or you, the handler. If they get scared easily, they can even bash and kick and do everything they can to get away from what scares them, even if it means it breaks their legs or even kills them. So, yeah. And also, basically, any kind of unwarranted change can pretty much make them stressed very, very easily. Even if they don't do bashing and kicking, the high stress levels of cortisol levels, which is often associated with stress, or at least high functioning, can be lethal to them. So that's definitely something to consider. Another thing to consider on the Eolambia's behavior is sociality. Now, mind you, the sociality of Eolambia is currently unknown, and variations are possible. And looking at many other species, it could go either or. And even although the chances of them being herd animals is pretty high, sociality is definitely important. It basically will show that either being alone or being in an unsuitable social group can affect the stress levels of the animal. And herd dynamics, or herd politics, if you will, can affect the stress levels of the Eolambia as well. Along with behavior, the dinosaurs' senses, such as sight, sense of smell, hearing, and so forth, can definitely have an effect on training and conditioning of the animals. And it can even have an effect on the animals' levels of stress. Their sense of sight would obviously have an effect on how they see the world, especially on how they perceive threats and so forth. And how their eyes are positioned is another way how we were able to tell that the Eolambia is a prey animal. For example, predators like this daedon have eyes that face forward, which gives them a good binocular vision that has a hard time looking around the place. Whereas in prey animals, like this Uintatherium or Eolambia, has eyes on the sides of its head, which gives it peripheral vision, which give it almost a 360-degree vision. So this will definitely helps it to not be able to be snuck on by predators so easily. This will definitely affect how it would see things. Of course, with vision that can be able to make you see almost 360 degrees, this can make you very easily distracted with things in the background. And when they're more aware of something, that means they would definitely get spooked more easily, as mentioned earlier. Now, having peripheral vision is only half of the whole vision deal. The other part of it may seem mundane, but it's actually very important, is literally how they see the colors of the world, like how they see colors. This can actually have an immense effect on how they react to differences in their environment and so forth. Now, when we're looking at the animals living today that are our closest living relatives, that might give us some clues. One of the Eolambia's closest living relatives are crocodilians. And if their vision are similar to theirs, they will have like 3 cones in their eyes, which gives them a sophisticated color vision. However, this will make their vision very similar to humans who have developed red-green color blindness. However, since while crocodiles are closest living relatives, they're not the closest living relatives to Eolambia or most other dinosaurs. And that since such a color vision is better for water rather than of land, it's not very likely that Eolambia's vision is like this. The next closest living relative to Eolambia and other dinosaurs, especially the dinosaurs in general, are the birds. And their color vision could be further different from those of crocodilians. What I mean by that is that unlike crocodilians, birds have 4 cones in their eyes. And this will help them not only be able to see color, but they're even able to see colors that even we humans can't be able to see. So this gives them a really, really wide range. And this could definitely be important when it comes to conditioning and training, because colors that seem mundane to us can be distractive or shocking to them. Another sense to be taken into consideration is their sense of smell. While it can't be said with complete certainty on how strong hadrosaur sense of smell are, but it's been theorized that, at least with the crested hadrosaurs, their sense of smell will be immensely strong. But since Eolambia is more akin to the iguanodon than actual hadrosaurs, we'll use them as a model. And it has been recently been suggested that iguanodon has a pretty strong sense of smell. So it's fair to assume or say that Eolambia's sense of smell is pretty strong as well. A sense of smell can be helpful or detrimental when training or conditioning an animal. Like, you can use a smell of food, or in case of the males, a female in heat to be able to lure them around and stuff like that. But it can also be distracting because the same female eustrus smell can distract the bulls or get them all hormonal and riled up. A smell of blood, or more so, a smell of a predator, will make them very flighty, or very strong smells in general that they never experienced before will make them balk and so many other things. So a sense of smell can be a benefit or a detriment when training and conditioning the Eolambia. The next and final sense, or at least for this video, one can take into consideration is the Eolambia's sense of hearing. Much like other large dinosaurs, it's quite possible that Eolambia could probably be able to hear infrasounds, just like they and elephants could. Sounds that are basically too low in frequency for humans to hear. So it's definitely possible that their hearing range is about the same. Speaking of large, while the Eolambia is not exactly the largest of the dinosaurs, as mentioned earlier in the video, being 17 to 20 feet long, 6 feet and 7 inches tall at the hips, and weighing over a ton, it still is a pretty large animal by comparison. This definitely will mean quite a bit, since when you consider that this is a prey animal that can be very skittish or partially aggressive, and it's a large animal, it could be able to damage facilities, containment devices, risk personnel safety, and themselves if they feel like it. Much like hadrosaurs and iguanodons, Eolambia is generally a quadruped, walking on 4 legs, but would occasionally be bipedal, doing browsing, running, and or surveying their surroundings. Now I know what you're wondering. Austin, why do you go through all this data, all this information? Well, that's primarily because in order to be able to understand how to train and condition the Eolambia to certain things and so forth, you got to know the animal itself as an animal. Whether it's like on a species basis or even by its own personality basis. There could be like some Eolambia that are very skittish, but there could be also those who are pretty placid. But they generally follow the same trend. In order to be able to train or condition any animal, you gotta know how the animal is as a species to how it is as an individual. And being able to do that, you could be able to get some really good results with the right time and patience and the know-how. Now that we have an idea on how Eolambia is as an animal, now we need to know like how do we train and condition such a species. We could definitely use what is commonly used in zoos called operant conditioning. Coined by B.F. Skinner in 1937, operant conditioning is a type of learning that teaches animals to associate their behaviors with consequences and is the basis of animal training. It's also known as instrumental conditioning. Basically, in operant conditioning, you would use rewards to be able to reinforce and encourage good behaviors. And as for punishment, now punishment is always the word you want to avoid, or it's always like the big no word. But it's not like the stereotypical punishment like physical harm or anything like that. It's just mostly like a removal of a reward or something like that to basically discourage unwanted behavior, making the behavior extinct, basically. When operant conditioning, when done right, can be able to make it very stress-free for the animals, and especially for the people. However, the best way you can make this work is to make certain that there is a trusting relationship between you and the animal. Basically, the animal needs to be able to trust you in order for this kind of conditioning and training to work at all. If an animal feels like it's been tricked or you don't make yourself easily understandable, it will definitely not want to do anything for you. And once you're able to establish a trusting bond between the two of you, you could be able to do a lot of things, and there are many types of training that can be able to help make things better. Or at least make it easier for both you and the animal. One form of training that can definitely be helpful for training the animals is target or clicker training. Basically, here's my little target stick, And once Leo here does something I want, like for example, I would like for him to be able to touch it. Good. Basically, I asked Leo to do what I want with my target, and once he did that, I did other trainers use a clicker sound, hence the nickname clicker training. And basically, that click or whistle is the bridge between the actions between the action I want to do and the treat. Well, of course, I haven't done a lot of clicker training with him, so he doesn't get it. But this is a type of training that has been done plenty of times in zoological facilities, and this would definitely be useful for training Eolambia. Of course, this kind of conditioning, this kind of training will definitely take some time. Each individual animal will be different, but they will definitely share some characteristics overall for the species. And for the case of Eolambia, with it being a skittish herbivore, it will definitely take some time. But once you're able to gain its trust, once you're able to understand its quirks and how it thinks, and how to be able to know what it wants, you could be able to train the animal to do a lot of things that would be very helpful. For example, if you want to be able to see inside the animal's mouth without having to sedate the animal and have to force their mouths open, you can use their behaviors to your advantage. For example, probably much like horses and giraffes, Eolambia would spend a great chunk of its time browsing and grazing for food, which means that they will like to manipulate things with their mouths a lot. For example, in this illustration, if you can get a material in your hand and teach the animal to be able to mouth, have their mouths open, trying to gnaw at the device, and enough that you could be able to see the back of the teeth or inside the mouth, this will definitely be a stress-free way to do oral examinations. It's important to note that the best way you could be able to have an animal do something is basically one of the, other than usual rewards, treats, trust, that sort of thing, is also things you want to do is within the animal's nature, like it's within their natural behavior. Like mentioned earlier, herbivores normally would just like to mouth things sometimes because they are used to often browsing or grazing, so their mouths are always moving, doing something practically. And sometimes they will develop habits of gnawing on things. You can use that to your advantage and be able to have your like Eolambia, for example, to be able to do the whole mouth thing with an object, and then you could be able to see what's inside the mouth. And since it's a natural behavior, it comes easily to them. So, and this will make them want to do it because A, they can be able to get a retreat, and B, it's within their behavior. You can definitely do this. You can definitely use their natural behaviors for other scenarios as well. For example, if we want to be able to get a medical examination of the Eolambia's underside, and of course we didn't want to put them in a screen or anything like that, you can use target training to be able to encourage Eolambia to be able to stand up bipedally, since according to paleontologists, hadrosaurids like iguanodonts, Parasaurolophus, and Eolambia while normally quadrupedal, would be able to stand up bipedally to browse, to survey, or to run. So be able to encourage an animal to do this on command would definitely make medical examinations significantly easier. Of course, there are definitely occasions when you want the animal to do something that would probably go against its nature, especially its instincts. For example, going into a crate. Many animals would be very suspicious of going to the crate, especially large prey animals like Eolambia. Especially if it's enclosed and they don't know what's in it, and they don't know if they're gonna get trapped in there or something's in there to go get them. So stuff like that you gotta take it very easy, very gently. Like I mentioned, trying to get a very skittish prey animal like Eolambia or an antelope, a deer, or anything like that into a crate for like transportation purposes or like medical examination purposes is a very, very tricky. You gotta take it easy at a time. There definitely are some ways you could be able to help speed up the process, but this sort of thing will require patience. Because if you try to force the animal into the crate, its fear of the crates are going to most likely paint it as something to fear, and it's just going to make it stressed out every time it goes to a crate or anything like that. There are some ways that could help condition the animal to get used to being in a crate or dealing with one. One of, if not the best way to get them used to a crate, is to have the crate in the enclosure or let it be part of the enclosure. Like, for example, in this illustration, the crate is basically a doorway between two different enclosures. You could be able to have the animal like sniff, investigate the crate, get a feel for it, and can be able to basically walk through the crate knowing that it could be able to get to where it wants to, or sometimes even you could be able to do training sessions in that crate that the animal can be able to associate the crate with basically the training and the reward. So by then, you could be able to have the animal associate the crate with something good. Once you're able to condition the animal to go into the crate and able to associate the crate with something good, then you could be able to get them into the crate for medical and shipping reasons. However, getting them to go into the crate is the first step. Having them be okay with medical examinations and stuff like that, that's going to be tricky. When you want the animal to be able to be used to certain medical procedures and stuff like that, you got to make sure you plan ahead. And this includes when you're doing crate training with them. For example, if you want to be able to get them used to getting a blood drawn from the base of the tail, while you're doing the crate training, having the crate there and have rewarded them every time they're in the crate and that kind of stuff, you can use the keepers can use something like a pen or a screwdriver, not actually jab the animal, but it's basically rub the animal where you want to be, and you go poke, and then once you're able to get them used to that, and they get rewarded for getting used to that, you could be able to get the animal to get used to getting their blood drawn. But this has been shown in when training antelopes. It may be the same for Eolambia, but even though they get used to that, they'll only get used to it if only on the spot they train. Like, for example, when they trained in the Denver Zoo, when they trained antelope, I can't remember which species, but I know one of them is a pronghorn. They poked them at a certain spot, I think around their neck or something like there, and they got used to doing that. But then when they tried to do the same thing only at a different part of the body, the animal freaked out. So if you want a high-strung animal to get used to having injections, make sure you plan ahead so you can be able to have the animal conditioned to receive medication, shots, or even something as ultrasound at certain bodies before you do that. So that way, it's not like out of the blue. And like I mentioned before, animals, especially prey animals, hate anything new, and it makes them very suspicious of things. So definitely keep that in mind when you're training them. Making certain that the Eolambia has been properly conditioned and properly trained for the captive environment is essential for the animal's well-being, especially if they are basically like the first of the Eolambia to be resurrected. With the animals being probably expensive to resurrect, and with them probably be the only ones of their kind for a long while, you would definitely want to make certain they are not stressed. And this kind of training and conditioning is a great way to be able to give them a stress-free environment and help them be able to thrive and make it a good, safe environment for both humans and animals alike. I want to say thank you to David Glean for sponsoring this video. He's been one of my longest subscribers and fans of my work. He's currently writing a story, a middle grade novella about a girl who gets lost in the wild and is raised by a Maiasaura, basically going with the title of Fern the Dinosaur Girl. He's hoping to be able to publish this book but sometime next year. At least that's what he's told me last. If you want to be able to support him and see some of his work, I'll send a link to his DeviantArt page down below. I also want to say thank you to some artists. I want to say thank you to Keenan Taylor for the commissions he has done for this video. And as you know, he's also done commissions for my other videos as well. His artwork is very great, and I will send a link to his channel and his DeviantArt page down below. I also want to say thank you to, I may be butchering the names a bit, Artbyjrc and cisiopurple for giving me permission to use their artwork for this video. I'll definitely send links to their DeviantArt pages as well. I want to say thank you to my Patreons and subscribers. Every little bit helps. And to viewers like you, thank you. If you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button. Like I said, every little bit helps. If you want to be able to sponsor a video as well, or send up videos, message me on my email or on Patreon, and we can work from there. I hope you all, each and every one of you, have a grand day. Adios!